Exactly 1 week until the NFL season kicks off, and exactly one division we have left to preview. And tonight it is the AFC North as we finish up our previews. You can see we're going in a shorter personnel formation tonight. No TJ, he did pass along some of his picks in here, so I've got those. We'll drop those at the appropriate times. But as everybody knows, the big, huge news in the sports world today is that Rick Barnes was given a lifetime contract by the University of Tennessee. Nothing else happened, especially when it comes to the NFL, right, Vegas Mac?
Absolutely. He well deserved too for Barnesy, man. Good coach, good guy, good dude. Yeah. You know, he'll probably get a summer house in Green Bay.
Packers fans out there are going, what about us? Well, what about us? We talked about you on Tuesday, but if you've been under a rock today, the Green Bay Packers absolutely fleeced Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys and the Micah Parsons. I think we should all just kind of take a deep breath here and a collective sigh of relief that the Parsons drama is over, as Micah Parsons is now a well-paid Green Bay Packer, 2 first rounds, and Kenny Clark is all it took to get Micah Parsons from Dallas to Green Bay. A record contract for Parsons. I'm sure that'll play into our predictions, or maybe it won't at the beginning of the season when we do our full season kickoff show. That'll be a week from yesterday. So next Wednesday, September 3rd. Easy way for you to remember it, the night before we kick off the NFL season. That show will start a little bit later, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. But tonight, it's all things North, Mac. And the AFC North is always an interesting division, as you well know. It always brings us plenty of storylines. And then the Browns, plenty of stuff to talk about when it comes to the North. First thing off the top of your dome when we talk about the North.
The number three in a row. Can the Ravens do it 3 in a row? Speaking of Cleveland, I think they have 300 quarterbacks for them. So 3 there. I also think a couple of questions. One, are we wasting Burrow? And will we finally fall under the line?
Interesting stuff there, as always, from Vegas Mac. And,
Yes.
You mentioned the Ravens going for 3 in a row. It'd be the first time in franchise history if they can do that. And obviously the top question that comes to mind when we talk about the Ravens is, when will this team finally break its way free and push through, over, under, however you got to that wall to get to the Super Bowl? And we all thought it was possible last year because it seems like the Ravens win a Super Bowl every 10 years. That's kind of how things were for them. Didn't work out last year, but a lot of questions, a lot of new faces and new places in this division. So let's start on those newcomers right away, and I'll get us going. And one guy that I'm really excited to see how he fits into the scheme of things, because we talk about first-round draft picks and second-round draft picks, and I think once we get past that, your particular team is the only thing you kind of pay attention to at that point. I am more of one of those nerds that likes to watch the draft from like round 3 to round 6 and see where certain guys go and where certain guys fit. And one of those guys is in what I think is a perfect spot for him. And that's 3rd-round draft pick of the Steelers, Caleb Johnson. He'll come into the year as the backup running back to Jaylen Warren. But I think the 2 skill sets of those 2 running backs in particular in Pittsburgh, and namely Johnson, with what he does and what Arthur Smith likes to do, I think that's a really good spot for Johnson, and I'm interested to see how the Steelers utilize him in Pittsburgh this year. Give me one of your newcomers to the division, or a pair of newcomers to the division that you're looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to step right into the black and gold right off the bat. And I think, unfortunately, he got hurt in one of the last preseason games, and that's Derek Harmon from Oregon. I love him in the middle just to kind of blow things up. But the other one is Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. I mean, he's just a gamer. I mean, let's just say, we all know that kind of player. And I mean, I think every once in a while we talk about fits. I think he's a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he's going to be really, really good. He doesn't have to be all that this year. he's still going to get some good playing time. But I actually love Jack Sawyer. Like I said, I just think when the lights are on, he's that kind of player that that just shows up. He's a great football player. He's going to be a lot of fun for the Steelers, and I can't wait.
Yeah, if you drew up a prototypical player for the Steelers, Jack Sawyer is definitely a guy that fits that kind of mold of what a Steeler is. I mean, I think you nailed it. An absolute gamer. Harmon with a little bit of an MCL thing that's going to keep him kind of week to week. But Harmon was a game wrecker when he was able to be on the field in Oregon. And I'm also very interested to see that. I've got an old face in a new place for my second newcomer in the division. And that's DeAndre Hopkins, who I think a lot of people have forgotten now plays for the Baltimore Ravens. And
Right.
will the Ravens be able to utilize him? How does that help the Ravens and Lamar? Obviously, we know the bulk of that offense goes between Lamar and Derrick Henry. But I think the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is something that Lamar's never really had there. I also think it's going to open up the field for guys like Isaiah Likely, who a lot of people are expecting to break out this year. I'm very interested to see how Hopkins kind of changes the look for the Baltimore offense. I think you have a Raven for your second newcomer in the division, and I know this is a guy I'm really excited about.
Yeah, Malachi Starks, just absolutely. I mean, we talked about Sawyer being a fit for the Steelers. This guy is a Baltimore Raven. I mean, he's a great fit defensively. The great thing about him is that he's movable. He can play a couple of different positions, and that just completely fits what the Baltimore Ravens do on defense. This is going to be a great pick for that. Well, it is a great pick for them. He's going to be really good in that defense. Hate to have to go against him twice a year, though. Ugh.
Yeah, and can we please put out a PSA to the rest of the effing NFL? Can you stop just allowing guys like Malachi Starks to just, I mean, what Baltimore does and they get these guys to fall into their lap. What Philadelphia does and these prototypical Eagles players just fall right in Howie's lap. I mean, if you want to beat them and you're tired of getting your ass kicked by them, then don't let them keep drafting guys that are perfect fits for their system. I mean, call me crazy here, but yeah, Malachi Starks, again,
Great pick.
like you said, with Sawyer being a Steeler, Malachi Starks is a Raven. I think you nailed it right there. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along with us. We appreciate you. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. Shout out TJ. A lot of fun stuff going on, though, as we inch closer and closer. And when we look at this division, I wish T was here because T went on a tangent when we were talking about a specific quarterback out in the AFC West who's given flowers after flowers after flowers and not accomplished anything as of yet. Now, I won't say the same about Lamar Jackson because he's been an MVP. And again, wins are not a quarterback stat. So before you come after me on that, hear me out. When I look at the quarterbacks in this division, I think a lot of people would go, oh, Lamar Jackson's the best quarterback in the division. I say no. It's Joe Burrow. And you go, well, what has Joe Burrow done? Well, Joe Burrow has gone to a Super Bowl. I mean, if we think Lamar Jackson is all that, eventually, and I mean when I say eventually, this year, he's got to get through and show us that he can get there. When I look at the rest of the division from a quarterback standpoint, I think we know better than to doubt Joe Flacco. The difference is I don't know if Joe Flacco has ever had less talent around him than what he has this year in Cleveland. So I would definitely put Cleveland's group last because you have Flacco and then you have the two rookies. Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers. I think everybody's smart enough to know that Aaron Rodgers is not the same Aaron Rodgers that he was when he was racking up MVPs, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the dude has thrown less interceptions than any quarterback in NFL history. He's smart. He's in a system that's going to benefit his skill set. Mason Rudolph is the backup. Will Howard's going to start the year on IR, but I mean, again, he's still there. He's still in the building. He's still learning. So for me, Mac, I've got to go with Burrow over Jackson. I don't think there's a lot of separation there, but I want a guy who's gotten me to a Super Bowl, not a guy who can't get to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I mean, one or the other. I mean, if you gave me one or the other, I would take them. I mean, Joe Burrow, obviously kind of more of your typical quarterback, more drop back, throws the ball. Although Lamar has gotten better with his passing, but Lamar was kind of the start of all of these these dual threat quarterbacks, if you will. So yeah, I mean, either one is good. As far as Pittsburgh goes with Rodgers, I mean, here's the deal. I mean, the Steelers were almost they were a playoff team last year without really a good quarterback. And, now they have, an aging Rodgers who, statistically and probably is better than what they had there last year. So, I mean, I'm not disappointed that they signed him. We'll just have to wait and see. My biggest thing is, luckily he stayed away from injuries last year. I worry about that a little bit with that offensive line where he's going to go. But, again, like you said, he doesn't throw interceptions. He makes good decisions. He's in a good system, too, with Pittsburgh. Cleveland, again, it's just a mess. I saw today where Watson is about ready to I don't know if he's ready to come back and play, but he's progressing that way. And the headline on it was, well, Deshaun Watson, when he's there, he's a top quarterback. And I'm like, well, no, not really. But so we'll wait and see. But without a doubt, Burrow and probably I would take him over anybody in that division.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty resounding, as my dogs won't shut the F up out there. It's a pretty resounding theme there. The running backs, I think, as a whole in this division, leave a lot to be desired. For me, it's a no-doubter with Baltimore. I love the combination of Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. Keaton Mitchell is a guy I think a lot of people have forgotten about, and unfortunately, he's dealing with another injury here after missing a whole year with an injury. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. Sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1, according to what John Harbaugh has said so far in the preseason. But I think it's a no doubt Baltimore one. I do, as I mentioned off the top, I like the addition of Caleb Johnson. A lot of pressure on Jaylen Warren to step up there. I do like Chase Brown, but there's going to be a heavy emphasis on him having a big year for Cincinnati. Cleveland, I'm intrigued if Quinshon Judkins can keep his head on straight, what he can do for them. But I think there's a lot to be desired when it comes to the running back rooms as a whole in this division outside of Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, my comment was this: it's Baltimore and the other groups. They just all suck. They really do. I don't really like them. And I'll start with Cincinnati. And here's. It's not so much even the running backs at Cincinnati. It's just the scheme is what it comes down to. Cincinnati's not looking to run the ball. Cincinnati's looking to throw the ball. So that's not their emphasis. Their emphasis is not the run. So that kind of plays into a little bit of my position with them. Pittsburgh, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, like you said, I like Caleb Johnson there. Pittsburgh, we know they're going to run the ball. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. They got to run the ball. We'll have to wait and see. Warren was a good change of pace for Najee. They just, that's the thing about the Steelers. They don't have that big, strong running back that we kind of equate to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't, the Jerome Bettis, and again, what Najee brought. So we'll have to wait and see if Warren can shoulder the load. He's a different type of running back. But from what I've seen so far, Caleb Johnson has been pretty good. We'll have to just wait and see. Cleveland, again, not a lot going on with the Browns running game right now.
Yeah. We've seen some really solid running backs in Cleveland, but, some big time injuries, and they've moved on in where they've had to move on. And part of that's when you pay a human piece of shit the amount of money that you paid Deshaun Watson, it kind of handcuffs your whole franchise there. So when we look at the receivers, I think this is, again, a no-brainer here. The combination of Chase and Higgins is definitely the best group within this division. I really also like Jermaine Burton and Isovius in Cincinnati. They added Gesicki. They also have Noah Fant there. So I think there's a lot of pass catchers, which is exactly what you want if you're Cincinnati. I'm very intrigued by the group in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned with Hopkins, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. Bateman and Flowers aren't really like household names yet, but they're really dynamic. Cleveland, again, it's, Jamari Thrash and Isaiah Bond when we're getting into some of the depth of third receivers. Cedric Tillman, all right. David Njoku definitely ups that group. I'm really intrigued by Pittsburgh. And I mentioned this a little while ago. Obviously, DK Metcalf, a man amongst boys, especially at the wide receiver position. But it's some of these other guys in Pittsburgh. Okay, they go out and make the move for Jonnu Smith. You know, he's dealing with some stuff right now. Ben Skoranek, who they bring over from the Rams, kind of a Swiss Army knife, a guy who can do a lot of things. Roman Wilson, you know, they've got some intrigue there. So I think it's Cincinnati for sure. Very intrigued by Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and then Cleveland. Sorry about it, not sorry about it. I mean, there's a lot of holes on that roster, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there really is. I mean, Cleveland last year, from a grade standpoint, worst receiving grade in the NFL. And I don't know that it's going to get a whole lot better. Um, Baltimore to me is scary. They really are. I love Zay Flowers. I mean, I absolutely love. I mean, watching him. I mean, he's just such. To me, I think he's going to have one of these breakout seasons. I really really do. I like you said, Hall is good. Good tight end with Andrews in there, and likely. I mean, I love what the Ravens have from the running backs to the receivers. I just think it could be a very special year for them. I almost put this guy on the newcomers list because he didn't play last year, and that was Roman Wilson. And he had a really, really good preseason. And that's one thing about the Steelers. They went and got DJ Metcalf. That was kind of like the trade-off for Pickens to have him come in. They're really looking for that second and third receiver. And I think from what I've seen in the preseason that Roman Wilson can do that. You have to remember, he was pretty darn good in college, and he got hurt last year, and he didn't play, so he kind of was just, you know, a forgotten story. But I think he's going to be a surprise this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people there, and you know, one of the things that Rodgers has always been really, really good at is throwing that underhand little shovel pop pass, you know, and he's got some guys in this receiver room that I think are going to really, really benefit from that. Offensive lines, this is where it gets really interesting. New sign to the division today for Cincinnati. They signed veteran Dalton Reisner to help their banged up offensive line there, and arguably probably the two most scrutinized groups in the entire NFL this year of offensive linemen are going to be within this division in Cincinnati and in Pittsburgh. Baltimore, they're solid. They have good depth amongst their group as well as their starters. Cleveland's offensive line, you know, I think can be maybe a quiet strength for them, but all eyes are going to be on Pittsburgh and Cincinnati here. And I like what Pittsburgh did in creating some depth there. They get a very versatile multi-positional backup in Andrews Pete. Also Spencer Anderson there, you know, guys that, you know, survived the cut, and I don't think there was really probably any question there. The Steelers have the depth that they need, because if they can protect Aaron Rodgers, then we're talking about a completely different thing. Same thing with Cincinnati. Duh, if your offensive line's good, your team's probably going to be good. But I think the two most scrutinized groups in the entire NFL, two of the top three, I would say the other one is probably out west in San Francisco. Can that offensive line give Brock Purdy time to throw? But between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, I think you're going to get a lot of eyes this year. I do think all of these offensive line groups within this division are pretty even. I would put Cincinnati maybe last. But I do think there's depth all the way across the North.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. We'll start with Pittsburgh. It's kind of funny. They have one of the youngest offensive lines protecting one of the oldest quarterbacks in the league. So, I mean, that again, as these teams go, like you said, for the Steelers, they need their offensive line because they want to establish the run. But then again, you know, they've got to be able to protect, you know, Aaron Rodgers. Cincinnati, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a different kind of protection. For Burrow, it's passing. That's their main thing. They've got to go out and they've got to make sure that, you know, they give him the time to be able to throw the ball. It's kind of interesting to me when you talk about these offensive lines. Like you said, I don't think any of them is really all that great, especially, you know, Baltimore. That's been one of the issues over the last couple of years. They had a couple of guys get hurt, a couple of guys retire. All of a sudden, their offensive line kind of has taken a hit and isn't as good as it once was. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, because that's a key for Baltimore. Again, I think Baltimore, like I said, is going to have a special year, especially offensively. But if that offensive line breaks down, that that's going to be a huge question mark for the Ravens going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and this is what the North is known for, is tough physical defenses. And I think when you look at all four of these teams across the board, again, all four of these teams have tremendous depth. They have some premier players at the three different levels there, which I think makes all these games a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, the talk of the offseason was Cincinnati when it came to the defensive line was Trey Hendrickson. And, you know, we went into the offseason and they had three big contracts that they had to get signed, three guys they needed to retain, and they did. You know, the Hendrickson thing, he's on a 1-year deal, so they're going to revisit this whole thing again, but they got him. And Cincinnati's pass rush is equally as important as their offensive line because, you know, you've got a new DC and Al Golden who comes over from Notre Dame. He has Trey Hendrickson. They drafted Shamar Stewart. And then you've got a guy in Joseph Osai who he had 5 sacks, I think, in the final 6 or 7 games last year, who was really kind of a bright spot there. So I think that adds to their depth. Obviously, when it comes to Pittsburgh, we know what Pittsburgh's all about, and they're on their defensive line. They've got tremendous depth. Baltimore, Matabike, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the entire NFL. And then, you know, Cleveland with Myles Garrett. So you've got premier players all the way across. And then you've got guys next to those premier players that usually benefit from it. And I see that when I look at all of these groups here. If I had to pick one that I would say would be the top group, I would probably lean Pittsburgh. But here's the thing, Mac, and you know this from your time coaching and your time playing at the collegiate level. Like, when you hear a certain narrative over and over and over and over and over again that you're not any good at this, you're not any good at that, these guys listen. And I know we're all expecting, and I even commented on it on our X account a couple of times in the little bit that we saw in the preseason, and take that for whatever it's worth. But is it possible the Cincinnati defense got worse? Or is it possible that we're overanalyzing the shit out of it, and now Trey Hendrickson's back in the fold, and if they have a pass rush, the Cincinnati defense is probably going to be a little bit better than a lot of people think. That might be a reach, but
yeah, I mean, I think it might be a little bit of a reach. I mean, defense in Cincinnati, you know, don't really mix all that well. It's kind of like, you know, frozen turkeys falling from the sky on Thanksgiving. A little WKRP reference right there. You know,
there you go.
there you go. I mean, I'll start at the top this time. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I think the Pittsburgh defensive line is one of the best in the league without a doubt, and Cleveland's not that far behind. And I think that's what makes this division so special. Is those guys up front for both Pittsburgh and for Cleveland. I mean, you want to talk about a fun game. We know the history of the Steelers with Myles Garrett. I mean, he's out there trying to rip the heads off of all the Steelers quarterbacks. Literally, yeah. I mean, and so that's what we have. And so those are really good. You know, here's the thing you said about Cincinnati. Here's what we know. We know the Bengals are going to score points. You know, it's just, is 30 going to be enough, or do they need 40 or 50 to score? You know, it's one of those things. If they're having to score, I mean, we're kind of tongue in cheek, but, you know, if they have to score a lot because their defense sucks, well, like it did last year, then, you know, this is a team that's going to struggle again this year. If the defense finds a way to be, here's the thing, average, Mike. If the Bengals defense is average, this is probably a pretty good playoff team, but can they be average?
Yeah, and that's a major question, because we know Cincinnati can put 50 on you, and they can put 50 on anybody's defense. I mean, we saw them put up some big time numbers against the Ravens last year, and you know, Baltimore is widely regarded every year as one of the better defenses in the entire league. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on Cincinnati, especially once we're going to talk about the schedules here in a little bit. But you know, when you go to the linebackers, for a guy that loves linebackers like I do, this is a great division to watch. And it's great for me because most of these games are on in the morning before the Niners play. So, you know, obviously when you got Watt, Queen, Wilson, and Highsmith, and yeah, Watt plays on the end of the line all the time, but I think a lot of people forget he is a linebacker. You know, the group in Cincinnati is intriguing with Demetrius Knight. I love Logan Wilson and Oren Burks. I think Oren Burks is one of those guys that a lot of people don't realize how good he is until you see him a bunch of times. He's been able to cut out a nice career for himself so far. Owe and Smith and Trenton Simpson in Baltimore. Kyle Van Noy. How many teams had the opportunity to bring in Kyle Van Noy? And again, we just let him fall to the Ravens. He's been a perfect fit for the Ravens since they picked him up. Cleveland's linebackers, I don't love. I don't think they're terrible, but I don't love them. You know, Diabate, who's already dealing with some stuff. Carson Schwechender. I love Devin Bush. But when I look at the depth behind those guys, I wonder how much depth Cleveland has in those backer spots. So, again, I mean, we're talking about the North, we're talking defense, and I think your top three defenses in this division, definitely Pittsburgh and Baltimore with their linebackers. Cincinnati, I would slide in probably third, and I'd put Cleveland fourth.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about it throughout, every one of these sessions that we've done, how important it is to have really good linebackers, especially now in the NFL, because they have to do so much. It's not just, they're not just run stoppers or blitzing anymore. They have to be able to go back and play in a lot of coverage. And believe it or not, it's kind of funny for a division that we consider so defensive. You have really two of the better offensive teams in this division with Baltimore and Cincinnati. So, these are teams, they obviously play each other twice in a season. They have to combat that. And you see that. And I'll use, because I watch the Steelers and the Ravens as a test. The Steelers don't typically struggle against Lamar Jackson. They know how to play him. The reason why, it's because of their linebackers. Their linebackers are able to get to him and force him, and then when he does kind of get loose, they're able to track him down. That's why in this division, those linebackers are so important. And so, yeah, up and down the line, I mean, I don't think there's much separation. If I actually had to rank them, I would rank them almost, in order, like in the NFL, just in order, almost together. They're that good a group for each and every team.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, feel free to comment along if you're a fan of the AFC North. Maybe you're an AFC North hater. Jump into the conversation, and we'll get as many of them up on the air as we can. Secondaries, this is where I think there's a clear separation in the way I look at this group as a whole. And for me, and it might sound like we're bagging on Cleveland, if you will. We've talked about this several times, especially over the last four divisions that we've talked about. Guys who are better coordinators than they are coaches. And where Cleveland might not wow you with all their names at their starting 11 on defense, Jim Schwartz is a hell of a defensive coordinator, and he's gotten a lot out of that group. And the only reason that Cleveland's even been competitive for the most part over the last couple of years with all the quarterback carousel drama is because of the defense and Jim Schwartz. When we look at the secondary groups here, if I'm a Steelers fan, holy shit. You add Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay to a group that's already pretty good with Porter and Thornhill and Elliott. Miles Killebrew, when you're talking about depth guys that can do a lot, really, really nice fit for them. Cincinnati, leave a little bit to be desired there. Geno Stone, obviously one of the better free safeties in the league. Cam Taylor-Britt looking to have a bounce back here. Again, when you get into the Ravens secondary, it's typical Ravens. Wiggins, Hamilton, Starks, Jair Alexander now Marlon Humphrey. I mean, they've got the depth there as well. But, I mean, if I'm a Steeler fan and already damn good defense and already very productive secondary, and you just added Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey, sign me up for that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of their weaker spots last year. I mean, they had Porter back there, but I mean, now he's got a lot of protection. I think that's just going to make him even have a better year out there. And again, like I just said, these teams secondary need to be good because you're talking about two really good offensive teams, so they need to be. I'll take Cincinnati next, and it's kind of like a sandwich for me. I don't think they're real good on the defensive line. I don't think they're really good in the secondary. So to kind of answer your question, I really think the Bengals are going to struggle this year because of that. I just defensively, I just don't see it. They're going to have to really, they're going to need a lot of hats and a lot of rabbits to be pulled out in order to be successful, from the defensive standpoint. But yeah, I agree. I like what the Steelers did. Obviously, Baltimore is really, really solid, and Cleveland too. So again, those secondaries are going to get tested early and often in this division.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look at the coaching staffs, this division's very, very interesting. Zach Taylor, I think a lot of people have forgotten Zach Taylor has been in Cincinnati since 2019. Mm-hmm. He's been to a Super Bowl. Again, they had a defense that matched. Their offense wasn't even quite what it is now when they went to that Super Bowl. Their defense was their strength that year. Kevin Stefanski is one of those guys that's kind of like hey, maybe a better coordinator than a head coach, but I don't know if I can completely say that yet because I don't know if I can completely judge a head coach on his tenure in Cleveland. And again, the knock is it comes from the lack of stability within the organization. I mean, Cleveland still does Cleveland things. They have this shiny new stadium that they're going to put out way out in wherever the hell they were. And all the plans are drawn up. Everybody's excited about it. And then we find out sometime last week, I think, that they're not going to get a building permit for it because it's too high in accordance to where the airport is. I mean, that's a Cleveland thing to do. And so I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. I just don't know if we're going to be able to totally gauge that on his time in Cleveland. Obviously, you're stalwarts in the division, and you can call him a 1 and a 1A here and say what you want about Mike Tomlin. The dude wins. He keeps winning. Yes, it's been a long-ass time since he's been to a Super Bowl, but, I mean, there's a lot of franchises across the NFL that would take him in a heartbeat. And obviously, John Harbaugh, as long as he's been in Baltimore and the success that they've had. So, and the other thing is, and I had my questions about Arthur Smith. I really still have my questions about Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers and how the two of them are going to mesh. I think it's going to work out pretty good because of where Rodgers is at in his career. But, clearly the benchmark in this division is the coaching and the staff as a whole in both Baltimore and Pittsburgh. That's not reinventing the wheel there.
No, I love how we have coaches that have been with these organizations for a long time, and they just have those battles against each other. And I'm going to have to find I wonder how long it take me to fire off the Fire Mike Tomlin tweet. Wonder how long it's going to be, game one or first quarter of game one or whatnot. But, I give him a hard time. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, he wins. And I mean, no offense. Wouldn't Cleveland like to have a season like the Pittsburgh Steelers have? I mean, when, the Arizona Cardinals like to have a season like the Steelers have and have a coach like that. I mean, sometimes, you kind of, you're so close, you kind of get a little jaded from that. But I mean, you're 100% right, Mike. I mean, these are really good coaching staffs, really up and down this division. And they do such a good job. I mean, watch when these teams play against each other. I mean, again, I see a lot of it, but those matchups, I mean, you just know they match up every year, and it's different football. Let's just be honest. It's different football. When the Steelers play the Ravens, I mean, I always joke, who's going to kick the most field goals, because that's what it's going to come down to. It's not really about a touchdown. It's about field position. It's about making the right calls at the right time and putting your team in positions to win. And that's why these coaches really are successful.
The two most important body parts in all of sports reside in Pittsburgh: Chris Boswell's leg and Paul Skeens' arm. I mean,
yes.
But we talk about coaching and the turnover all the time. Within this division, you've got 3 of the top 8 longest tenured head coaches in the NFL, with Tomlin being number 1 at 18 years, John Harbaugh at 17 years. And then you go down to the list, number 8 is Zach Taylor, who's been in Cincinnati for 6 years. Obviously Andy Reid almost said Cleveland. God, Cleveland would love if Andy Reid was ever there. He's 3rd at 12 years in Kansas City. Sean McDermott now 4th, 8 years in Buffalo. And then McVay and Shanahan 5 and 6, 8 years in LA and San Francisco respectively. So, there's and then you go down the rest of the list, man, and you're talking about guys 4 years or less, and the amount of like first years or second year guys, I mean, that rounds out the league. And there's always turnover here, but again, you can say what you want about whether so and so can win the big one, but I'm sure there's a lot of teams in the NFL who frequently are on the bottom of that list I was just referring to that would give an arm and a leg for a Mike Tomlin or a John Harbaugh there. Schedules play a lot of it, and I'll start with T's here because he dropped in a couple of these for us. He'll be back with us on Wednesday when we do our season kickoff show. But he went to the first 6 weeks of Baltimore's schedule as his tough spot or his interesting spot. Baltimore starts at Buffalo, as we know, on Sunday Night Football. Then they've got Cleveland. Then they have Detroit on Monday Night Football. Then they're at Kansas City. They're home for Houston. They're home for the Rams. Those are your first 6 weeks if you're Baltimore. So if you look at that, you would assume that there's only one game in that mix that you're going to go, no doubt about it, they should be able to knock off Cleveland. You would think the Rams, maybe. Depends on what the hell's going on with Matt Stafford.
Right.
Houston, but they get those games at home. They do go at Kansas City and at Buffalo right away. They do get Detroit at home. So I think, I can see where T was going with this. First 6 week stretch for Baltimore and a lot of expectations on the Ravens. That's a tough go out of the gate, but when you're consistently one of the better teams in the league, you play a first place schedule.
Yeah, I mean, that's a battle, and if you're going to have it, it's better to have it with a veteran team. We talked about last week, or the other day, I should say, not last week. It feels like last week, but on Tuesday when we talked about Minnesota, I talked about JJ McCarthy and like how the front of his schedule is kind of had those 5 home games. It's exactly what you would want for a rookie quarterback. This is a veteran team. There's no doubt about it. Let's just be honest. The Baltimore Ravens have a goal. That goal is not to get to the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. That's a goal for them. I mean, not many teams can say that, but that's what their season is. If it's not a Super Bowl, it's not a success. Let's just be honest.
Got Cody checking in on X. They are not upside down, you knucklehead. They are actually in the wall still because my fiance hung them up for me because I, again, don't use power tools. They're not upside down. Thanks for checking in. Obviously out there in the X world. We'd love to get the comments from all of you guys out there, even if they are about my empty upside down shelves. They'll be full by the time we start getting into NFL games that matter. Mac, why don't you give me your stretch of the schedule here that stuck out to you?
All right. Well, before I do my stretch of the schedule, I'm going to get a T-shirt. The Reunion Tour 2025, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, it starts off right off the bat at the New York Jets. I mean, come on. Could it be any better than that? And then you think, it does get better. Guess who they play in week 2 at home? Seattle. Welcome DJ Metcalf, right? You got that. And then, don't forget, we go and play Minnesota. Where are they playing Minnesota, Mike? Do you know?
It's one of the overseas games. I don't know exactly where.
It's in Ireland. Oh, guess who's from? Guess that's where the Roonies are from. So there you go. You have that. And then, not to be outdone, we have week number 8 against Green Bay. So the Reunion Tour is in full stride with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what part of their schedule am I looking at? I think if the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have any success, they're going to have to do it before week 13. Week 13, they play at home against Buffalo. Then they play at Baltimore. And then they play Miami and then have to go to Detroit. It's not as bad as last year's end of the season schedule, but you're talking about 3 legitimate Super Bowl contenders in Buffalo, Baltimore, and Detroit in a 3-week stretch. Sorry, Miami.
Sorry, in Miami, they actually go together better than you think. 2 things here. One, I agree with you, and don't forget, Week 18 is TBD against Baltimore, and that very likely could be for the North. Which means we're guaranteed to have that in a sloppy ass rainstorm because it just seems like every time they play an important game at the end of the year, it's in shitty conditions. Absolutely. I'm really interested, and everybody's going to make a lot of Aaron Rodgers going back to to play the Jets in week 1. I think the thing that makes it most intriguing for me And you've seen this story by now because I think he said this on the McAfee show when they were kind of asking him about the end of the time with the Jets. He flew all the way across the country, and I get it that nobody's gonna, feel sorry for him. Who feels sorry for Aaron Rodgers? But think about this. They fly him all the way across the country to meet with Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn tells him, we're going in a different direction. Bro, you couldn't have Zoom called that? If you think for 1 second that Aaron Rodgers is not going in with the most gigantic effing chip on his shoulder in that game, man, you got another thing coming to you if you don't believe that. What would concern me is Aaron Rodgers is back on the shitty turf at MetLife Stadium. That would be my bigger concern there. Scheduling wise for me, and this is a team that I am kind of high on this year. And a lot of people think I'm high because I'm high on them. But for me, I'm going to trust a team that has Joe Burrow under center about as much as any team in the NFL. And I understand that the catch there is their defense. Well, here's where you can make your season or you can lose your season. And we know in the last couple of years, Cincinnati has not started strong. That's why we saw Burrow and Chase as much as we did in the preseason this year. But here's the stretch where Cincinnati can show people, hey, we're actually for real or we're the same Bengals. Weeks 4 to 7, they're at Denver. Then they're home for Detroit. They're at Green Bay, now with Micah Parsons. And they play Pittsburgh. That's a 4-game stretch moderately early in the season for Cincinnati, where I think Cincinnati can answer a lot of these questions that we all have, or they cannot. They start the year, and again, they start the year to kind of extend it like you did with Pittsburgh. They start the year at Cleveland, then they play Jacksonville, then they're at Minnesota before they go to that game at Denver. Now, at Minnesota is not an easy one because we talked about Brian Flores and that defense there, which is going to challenge this team, especially a team that a lot of people aren't sure what to make of Chase Brown at the running back spot. If you were to look at the one possible hole on their team, I don't think you can call Chase Brown a hole on their team. Dude's dynamic. He's fast as all hell, but he's got a lot of pressure on him now this year. I think that's a stretch where Cincinnati's either going to answer the questions or they're going to prove to us that they're the same Bengals. That stretch right there.
Yeah, and then I think I'm going to kind of invert a little bit in that. If you start at week 7, you look 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, they have a bye in there, but they play against Pittsburgh, against the Jets, against Chicago, so 3 home games in a row. Then they go to Pittsburgh, and then they have New England at home. So again, you're talking about that's a 5-game stretch right there where they have to think 4-1 in that stretch for sure.
Yeah, and that second meeting when they go to Pittsburgh is after the aforementioned bye that you said. So it's a good spot for them. Let's go to some liquid locks for the division here.
Nice.
TJ's got a couple in here. First one, Lamar Jackson, over 1,000 yards rushing. That is a plus 350 right there. That's a lot of yards for a quarterback, and I don't know if that's as many hits as they want Lamar to take, but that's a decent value.
I mean, it is, and I would be a little skeptical on that. And again, like I said before, the one thing that they wanted Lamar to do last year is not run as much. And I think with the weapons he has on offense, I think you're going to see less Lamar. He'll run when he has to, but I think you're going to see him throw the ball a little bit more than we expect. Right? Yeah, exactly.
And again, the reemergence of Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill also there. I mean, there's so many weapons, and I know those weapons are going to come back up here in a second. TJ's other one, plus 180, Pittsburgh under 7.5 wins. So TJ likes the value on a losing season, which is rare, very rare for the Steelers.
Very rare.
At plus 180. I've got 2 of them. My first one, and again, everybody in Cleveland's going to think I'm dumping on them here, but I think there are so many questions on this Cleveland team that even as much as I do really have faith in Joe Flacco, I think this thing is an absolute dumpster fire in Cleveland, and I am going to take the Browns under 5.5 wins. Their Vegas win total at 5.5. I'm going to take them under 5.5 wins. I think this Cleveland situation is about as bad as it gets. You've got the 2 rookies behind Flacco at quarterback. I'm sure we're going to see both of them. But I think this is back to the Browns need to blow the damn thing up again. I don't like their depth at a lot of their positions, and I don't think Jim Schwartz's defense can carry them through everything this year. My other one, I think there's great value in this. And there is only one question here. Can you protect the guy under center? That's the Steelers to win the North at a plus 475. I think the Steelers are being very, very overlooked here. I think, you can say what you want about Aaron Rodgers' skill set at this point in his career. I think this is a perfect offensive setup for him. I think the schedule works its way out very well for them. Obviously, you've got to get through Baltimore. But I like the Steelers at a plus 475 value to win the North. You mentioned something about 10, 15 minutes ago, Mac. The thing that has hurt the Ravens consistently over the last couple of years is they go through these long stretches of their season where they've got some key injuries. It's the NFL. We know injuries are going to happen. Do the Ravens have enough depth to balance that? And can the Steelers catch a little lightning in a bottle? I think if you're a Steelers fan with the additions they made, as I said, in that secondary, already having one of the better, if not the best defensive line in the league, and, what Aaron Rodgers can bring, the good things that Aaron Rodgers can bring, I love the value there at plus 475.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's going to be interesting. This division always is. I started with Cleveland. That was my first one. Under 4.5 wins. I think they're actually going to be a little bit better than that. I think they're going to get 5 or 6 wins. So I like Cleveland for over that total. The second one, this one, I thought long and hard about this one. And the Steelers, I have them for under 8.5 wins. I think I'm not sold on this offensive line yet. I think they're young, they're inexperienced. I'm not sold on them yet. Because of that, we know they want to run heavy. I need to see a little more from Caleb Johnson in there. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm a little worried about that. And still, you have unproven receivers besides DJ Metcalf. All of their receivers are really hurt or unproven. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for Pittsburgh. So I think, unfortunately, this is the year that they're going to be under 8.5 wins. I think it's going to be a little bit of struggle. And this,
I know you're not done.
I know I'm not done. This pains me even more, but I'm being realistic. Again, taking a good look at this. I can't wait till next week and we talk about the preview show. This Baltimore team, I said it a couple times, I think is going to be special. I have Baltimore leading the league in scoring. That's how special I think they're going to be. Leading the lead in scoring.
I don't know if I could take that one. I think there's a better choice to lead the league in scoring this year. Who is it? I'll tell you next Wednesday. How does that sound? Couple of college football scores tonight. Boise State gets their asses handed to them by Alex Golish and his South Florida Bulls, 34-7. A big weekend of college football. Nebraska and Cincinnati just kicked off from Geehaw Field at Arrowhead. We've got some decent games on tonight, but obviously the big ones this weekend are feature games on the channel. Big Mac Friday, Ohio State and Texas. I'll have Bama and Florida State, Miami and Notre Dame. TJ will have LSU and Clemson as we highlight some of the biggest matchups this weekend.
You forgot one football game, Philadelphia beating Atlanta 18-4. But that's not the big thing, Mike. Schwartz, 4 home runs tonight.
Good God.
How about that?
Tell me you want the MVP without telling me you want the MVP. 18-4,
Philly. Oh, I guess they weren't so happy about what happened at Shea. Not Shea. Oh my gosh.
Whoa. You're dating yourself.
Woo, man, oh man. What happened in New York the last couple of days? Ooh.
Yeah, some interesting stuff going on. It's gonna be one hell of a race down the stretch there. I figured this one was coming from Mama Mac. Boise just they got it handed to them. And we talked about Boise. I will say this, and I thought about it before we did our college football kickoff show last weekend. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, go to our social pages on YouTube, Facebook, or X, and you can catch it from last weekend. But this South Florida team is going to be kind of a pain in the ass to a lot of teams. They've got some good transfers in there. Alex Golish has done a good job down there. I think they're going to be a team to watch. So a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. We are going to take a little bit of an extended break for the Labor Day holiday, hang out with the fam. We're rounding out birthday month in my house. Good God. It's almost over. Happy birthday to my sister today, and a happy birthday to my oldest daughter tomorrow.
Hey, and a happy belated birthday to you yesterday.
It was a good one, man. It started off good with Jurickson Profar and Ben Rice, and then it finished good with the Roman Empire and Yordan Alvarez in his first game back in the Astros lineup. So yesterday was fun. This weekend is going to be fun, and then we really get into it. So the next time that you'll catch us in this particular space is going to be Wednesday night, September 3rd, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. A little bit of a late start, but it is our NFL season kickoff show. We'll give you our division winners, our playoff teams, our Super Bowl matchups, some award winners, and a bold prediction from each of us, which if you followed the show long enough, you know those bold predictions are usually very bold. Who do I sink my teeth into in the NFL this year like I did the Commanders last year? The Royals in baseball the year before that, the red-hot Royals, who can't beat the White Sox, but...
I'll give you a spoiler. Tempe doesn't have to worry about this one.
I still can't take you seriously for that, but it is what it is. So next Wednesday night, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, our NFL kickoff show a week from tonight, like literally at this time. It's going to be about halftime of the Eagles absolutely massacring the Cowboys at the Link. Again, jump on that. Hey, if you want a free bet that I still can't believe this number is at this point. I think the game's on Monday. TCU against Chapel Bill and his North Carolina Tar Heels. The over-under on that game is 56.5 points. And as the last time I looked, it hasn't moved. There's so many new players in North Carolina, and you know a Bill Belichick team. I know it's college football now, but 56 are not totals that you usually see on Belichick games. I swear, I think for the first 3 weeks, Belichick is going to grind games into the mud. So don't say I didn't tell you. Under 56.5 is a good bet there. A lot of fun stuff coming up this weekend. For everybody behind the scenes, TJ will be back with us next week. For Vegas Mac, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you.